the devil knocks on your door, even prayers may not keep him out. In a small town called Oakwood, there lived a family named the Harrisons. John Harrison was a quiet man who worked as a teacher at the local school. His wife, Mary, stayed home to take care of their daughter, Emily. Emily was 12 years old, with brown hair and a big smile. She liked to play with her friends after school and read books about animals. One day, Emily came home from school feeling tired. She said her head hurt a little, but it was nothing big. Mary gave her some water and told her to rest. That night, Emily slept okay, but in the morning, she was different. She did not want to eat breakfast. She just sat at the table, staring at her plate. John asked her what was wrong, but she did not answer. She looked at him with empty eyes. As the days went by, Emily started to act more strange. She would talk to herself in her room, saying words that did not make sense. Mary heard her whisper things like, "Leave me," or "It's coming." At first, they thought it was just a phase, like kids sometimes have. They took her to the doctor, who said she might have a cold or stress from school. He gave her some pills, but they did not help. One night, John woke up to a noise. It was Emily standing in the hallway. Her eyes were wide open, but she seemed asleep. She said in a low voice, "The shadow is here." John felt a chill, but he led her back to bed. The next day, Emily forgot all about it. The family tried to go on with their normal life, but something felt wrong. Mary started to pray more, hoping it was just bad dreams. The days turned into weeks, and Emily's strangeness only grew. She stopped playing with her friends after school. Instead, she sat in her room, drawing pictures of dark shapes with no faces. Mary found one drawing under Emily's bed, a scribble of a person with black eyes and words written around it. "It sees me." Mary showed it to John, but he said it was just a kid's imagination. Still, his voice shook when he said it. Mary took Emily to another doctor, this time a specialist in the city. The waiting room was cold, with old magazines on the table. The doctor, a man named Dr. Carter, checked Emily's eyes and asked her questions. Emily answered in a flat voice, saying she felt fine. But when Dr. Carter asked her to draw something, she drew the same dark shape with no face. The doctor frowned and told Mary it might be a mental health issue. He suggested a therapist and gave Emily more pills. At home, things got worse. Emily stopped eating dinner with the family. She would push her food around and mutter under her breath. One night, Mary heard a thump from Emily's room. She ran upstairs and found Emily sitting on the floor, her bed pushed against the wall. Emily said, "It told me to move it." Mary asked who it was, but Emily just stared at the ceiling. John and Mary started arguing more. John thought Emily needed stricter rules, but Mary wanted to call their church's pastor. They went to bed each night feeling heavy, like something was watching them. Mary kept praying, but her prayers felt empty. She started to notice cold spots in the house, especially near Emily's room. The Harrisons' house felt heavier each day. Emily barely spoke now, only whispering to herself when she thought no one was listening. Mary couldn't stand it anymore and called Pastor Thomas, a kind but tired man who led their small church. He agreed to visit on a rainy Saturday afternoon. When Pastor Thomas arrived, the house smelled of old coffee and damp clothes. Emily was in her room, refusing to come out. Mary explained everything, the drawings, the muttering, the bed moving. John sat quietly, his arms crossed, not sure if he believed in this kind of help. The pastor listened and said it might be stress or something spiritual. He asked to see Emily. Upstairs, Emily sat on her floor staring at a wall. The pastor knelt beside her and spoke softly, asking how she felt. Emily didn't answer, but a low hum came from her throat, like a song with no tune. Pastor Thomas read a Bible verse and prayed, his voice steady. As he finished, a loud creak came from the ceiling, like something heavy shifted in the attic. Everyone looked up, but no one said anything. After the visit, Pastor Thomas gave Mary a small cross necklace for Emily to wear. He said he'd pray for them and come back if needed. That night, Mary hung the cross above Emily's bed. At midnight, she woke to a crash. The cross was on the floor, broken in half. Emily was asleep, or so it seemed. Mary didn't tell John. She didn't want another argument. The next day, Emily refused to go to school. She said the other kids were too loud and didn't understand. Mary noticed scratches on Emily's arms, thin and red like she'd clawed herself. The pills from Dr. Carter sat untouched on the kitchen counter. The Harrisons' life in Oakwood dragged on like a never-ending gray day. Emily's room now smelled of stale air and forgotten toys. She spent most of her time lying in bed, her eyes half closed, whispering words that sounded like a foreign language. Mary tried to clean the room every morning, picking up scattered drawings and wiping dust from the windowsill. But each time, new scratches appeared on the walls, faint lines that looked like letters but made no sense. John called Dr. Carter again, but the doctor said to wait for the therapist appointment next week. In the meantime, strange things happened around the house. The kitchen faucet would drip at odd hours, even after John tightened it. One evening, while making dinner, Mary heard a low growl from the living room. She found Emily standing there, her head tilted, watching the TV static. The TV was off, but Emily said, "It's talking to me." Mary turned away, her hands shaking as she stirred the soup. Pastor Thomas came back twice more, each visit feeling longer and more pointless. He prayed over Emily, sprinkling holy water on her forehead. The first time Emily just blinked. The second time she laughed, a dry, empty sound that didn't fit her small body. Pastor Thomas looked worried and suggested they talk to Father Michael, an older priest from the big church in the city. "He's seen things like this before," Pastor Thomas said, his voice low. John rolled his eyes but agreed. Anything to make Mary feel better. A few days later, Father Michael drove to their house in an old black car. He was tall and thin with gray hair and a calm face. The family sat in the living room, the clock ticking loudly on the wall. Father Michael asked questions about Emily's changes, when they started, what she said, the drawings. Mary showed him the broken cross and he nodded slowly. "Sometimes faith is tested in dark ways," he said. Upstairs, Father Michael sat by Emily's bed. She was quiet at first, but when he opened his Bible, her body tensed. A cold wind blew through the room, even with the window shut. Emily's voice changed, deeper than before. "You can't help," she said, her eyes turning black for a second, or so it seemed in the dim light. Father Michael prayed louder, but Emily twisted away, knocking over a lamp. The bulb shattered on the floor, leaving glass shards everywhere. After the visit, Father Michael talked to John and Mary in the kitchen. He sipped weak tea and said it might be more than a sickness. "I've read about possessions," he whispered. "We may need a full exorcism." John laughed nervously, thinking it was old superstition. Mary cried quietly, holding her hands together. That night the house creaked more than usual, like footsteps in empty rooms. Emily slept with her eyes open, staring at nothing. The next morning, Mary found more scratches on Emily's arms, deeper this time. She bandaged them and called the school to say Emily was still sick. John went to work late, his mind full of worry. The family ate breakfast in silence, the eggs tasting like nothing. Days blurred together, doctor calls, prayers, cold spots spreading through the house. Emily's whispers grew louder at night, echoing down the halls. The decision weighed on the Harrisons like a heavy blanket. Father Michael returned a few days later, this time with books and a wooden box of holy items. The house felt smaller, the air thicker with unspoken fear. John had taken time off work, telling his boss it was a family emergency. Mary cleaned the living room, moving furniture to make space, but her hands trembled as she dusted the shelves. Emily stayed in her room, her whispers turning into growls that echoed faintly through the walls. Pastor Thomas joined them too, standing quietly in the corner like a shadow. Father Michael explained the exorcism in simple terms over coffee at the kitchen table. "It's a prayer to drive out evil," he said, his voice calm but firm. "It may take time, and it could get worse before better." John nodded, though doubt flickered in his eyes. Mary clutched her rosary, the beads worn from constant use. They brought Emily downstairs that afternoon. She walked slowly, her feet dragging on the carpet. Her skin looked pale with dark circles under her eyes. They sat her on a chair in the center of the room, tying soft cloths around her wrists to keep her safe. Not too tight, just in case. Emily stared at the floor, her breathing shallow. Father Michael began the ritual. He wore a white stole over his shirt and held a crucifix. Pastor Thomas read from the Bible, his words filling the quiet house. As they prayed, Emily's body jerked. She lifted her head, her eyes rolling back to show only whites. A deep voice came from her mouth, not her own. "You fools. She's mine now." Mary gasped and covered her mouth. John stood frozen, his face white. The room grew cold, frost forming on the windows, even though it was a mild day outside. Objects started to move. A book slid off the shelf, thumping to the floor. Father Michael sprinkled holy water, and Emily screamed, her voice echoing like thunder in the small space. Green bile shot from her mouth, splattering the carpet. Mary rushed to clean it with a towel, the smell sour and rotten. They paused for a break after an hour. Emily slumped in the chair, sweating and mumbling. Father Michael wiped his forehead and said they needed to continue. John helped Mary make sandwiches in the kitchen, but no one ate much. The bread tasted dry, the ham bland. Outside, neighbors walked their dogs, unaware of the battle inside. The second session was harder. Emily's body lifted slightly off the chair, her feet dangling for a moment before dropping back. She twisted her head unnaturally, laughing in that deep voice. "Your God is weak," it said. Father Michael chanted louder, commanding the demon to leave. Scratches appeared on Emily's skin, red lines forming words like hell and stay. Pastor Thomas prayed faster, his book shaking in his hands. By evening, they stopped. Emily was exhausted, her body limp. They carried her to bed, where she slept fitfully. The priests stayed for dinner, simple pasta that Mary boiled on the stove. They talked in low voices about old cases, but kept details vague. John listened, his mind racing. That night, the house groaned with unseen winds, doors creaking open on their own. Mary lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this would ever end. The next day brought more of the same. Father Michael arrived early, his car pulling up at dawn. They repeated the prayers, Emily fighting harder each time. She vomited again, this time black sludge that stained the floor. Her voice mocked them, revealing secrets, like John's old doubts about faith or Mary's hidden fears. The family felt exposed, raw. Between sessions, they rested. John fixed a leaky faucet in the bathroom, the drip-drip a reminder of normal life slipping away. Mary washed clothes, folding them neatly in baskets. Weeks dragged on like this. The exorcism became routine, prayers, screams, cleanups. Emily grew thinner, her cheeks hollow. Doctors visited once, but shook their heads and left. Neighbors whispered about the strange visitors, but the Harrisons kept to themselves. Cold spots spread to the kitchen, frost on the fridge door. Objects flew sometimes, a cup shattering against the wall during a prayer. Father Michael bound Emily more securely, using ropes now instead of cloths. One night during a late session, Emily levitated fully, her body rising 3 feet off the chair. The priest pulled her down, their faces strained. The deep voice roared, shaking the windows. Mary cried silently, holding John's hand. They ended early that time, everyone too tired to go on. Pastor Thomas suggested calling for more help, maybe from the church higher-ups. Father Michael agreed, making notes in his book. The family ate cereal for breakfast the next morning, the milk warm from the fridge not working right. John went to the store for supplies, candles, water, bread. Life outside seemed distant, like a dream. Emily's room smelled of sickness now, her bed sheets changed daily. The scratches on her body healed slowly, leaving faint scars. The whispers never stopped, even in her sleep. The exorcism stretched into what felt like endless days for the Harrisons. Father Michael and Pastor Thomas came every morning now, their cars parking in the driveway like clockwork. The neighbors noticed but said nothing, busy with their own routines, mowing lawns, walking dogs, checking mail. Inside the house, the air hung heavy with the scent of incense and sweat. Mary kept the windows cracked open, hoping for fresh breeze, but the cold spots lingered, chilling the rooms even in sunlight. Emily's condition worsened in small, grinding ways. Her skin turned sallow, like paper left out too long. She barely ate, pushing away the oatmeal Mary spooned for her each breakfast. John tried to work from home, typing reports on his laptop at the kitchen table, but his fingers paused often, staring at the screen without seeing. The priests set up a schedule. Prayers from 9 a.m. to noon, break for lunch, usually sandwiches with thin slices of cheese and ham, then more rituals until dinner. Dinner was simple, pasta or soup from cans, eaten in silence around the table. During one session, the demon fought back harder. Emily's body arched off the chair, her spine bending in a way that made Mary wince. The deep voice boomed, cursing in words that twisted the air.
"Your prayers are dust," it snarled.
Father Michael held the crucifix high, his arm steady despite the tremble. Holy water sizzled on Emily's skin, raising small blisters that popped like tiny bubbles. Objects flew more often now. A vase from the mantel crashed against the wall, shards scattering across the carpet. Mary swept them up later, her broom moving in slow strokes, collecting dust bunnies along with the glass. Pastor Thomas read verses from his worn Bible, pages yellowed from years of use. Emily's head spun slowly, her eyes locking on each person in turn. She revealed more secrets. Mary's long-ago doubt in her marriage, John's hidden resentment toward his job, even Pastor Thomas's quiet fears from his youth. The words hung like smoke, making everyone shift uncomfortably. Between outbursts, Emily would slump, breathing raggedly, her small chest rising and falling like a tired bird. They took turns watching her at night. John sat in a chair by her bed, the lamp casting long shadows on the walls. He dozed sometimes, waking to whispers from Emily's lips, names of people long dead, or warnings about shadows in the corners. Mary prayed in the hallway, her knees sore on the hard floor. Father Michael stayed over once, sleeping on the couch with his coat as a blanket. In the morning, they all drank coffee, black and bitter, from mismatched mugs. As the weeks dragged, small signs of hope flickered. During a prayer, Emily's voice cracked, her own soft tone breaking through the demon's growl. "Help me," she whispered, tears on her cheeks. Father Michael pressed on, chanting Latin words that filled the room like echoes in a cave. The house shook once, pictures rattling on walls, but it passed like a distant storm. They cleaned up fallen frames, dusting them before hanging back. The climax came on a rainy Thursday. The sky outside was gray, water pattering on the roof like fingers tapping. Emily levitated again, higher this time, her body horizontal above the chair. The rope strained but held. The demon roared, wind whipping through the room, papers fluttering like leaves. Father Michael commanded it to leave, his voice rising over the noise. Pastor Thomas sprinkled more holy water, the drops hissing like oil in a pan. Emily's body twisted, vomiting black ooze that pooled on the floor. Mary mopped it later with old rags, the smell clinging to her clothes. The demon weakened, its voice fading to a rasp. "No, not yet," it muttered. With a final scream that shook the windows, Emily's body dropped back to the chair. She gasped, her eyes clearing to their normal brown. The room warmed suddenly, the cold spots vanishing like mist in sun. Father Michael checked her pulse, nodding slowly. "It's gone," he said, his face lined with exhaustion. Pastor Thomas closed his Bible, a small smile breaking through. They untied Emily, who hugged Mary weakly, her arms thin but real. John cried quietly, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. The aftermath was quiet, like the house settling after a long noise. Emily slept for days, waking only to eat small meals, toast with butter, apples sliced thin. The priests visited less, just to check in over tea. Mary washed all the sheets, hanging them on the line to dry in the breeze. John went back to work, his steps lighter. Scratches on the walls faded, painted over with fresh white coats. Life returned to normal in Oakwood. Emily went back to school after a month, her friends asking about her sickness. She drew pictures again, but of flowers and animals now. The family ate dinners together, talking about small things, weather, homework, weekend plans. Mary still prayed each night, but with thanks instead of fear. John fixed things around the house, the leaky faucet finally silent. Sometimes at night, a whisper might echo faintly, but it was just the wind, or so they told themselves. The shadow was gone, faith tested and held. The Harrisons moved on, their story buried in everyday routines, dull but safe.